We all struggle with productivity sometimes, especially now that most of us are working remotely. So how do we build good habits to stay productive? In this video, I spoke with Matt Ragland about 3 productivity tips that he uses to build good habits, stay consistent, and get more done. Please comment below with which tool or tip you thought was the most useful for your productivity.
What I was trying to get to with my YouTube channel, and this is kind of a big number, so take it with a grain of salt. I was really trying to get to 100 videos. Like that was my goal, to get to 100 published videos. And again, didn't matter how long they were, didn't matter how I felt about them. They didn't have to be 110-minute videos. It could be 101-minute videos, because I was really focused on the consistency of publishing. Now, I've kind of squeezed that down a good bit to where I think that if you're trying something new, like especially in a creative like content field, then again, kind of depending on the duration of it, but this is my 10 round rule. You can do 10 of a thing to get a feel for whether or not it's a fit for you. And you could spend an entire year even like running these sort of iterative tests among a bunch of different practices to see like, okay, like what is the right fit for me? Like you could write 10 essays, you could do 10 podcast episodes, you could produce 10 videos. When I talk with my students about this, we actually talk about this in terms of like even some other habits that you might want to build. So whether that is like daily journaling or a particular new exercise routine. When I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I was like, okay, I'm going to go 10 times. And if I can survive and feel good after 10 times, then, I'll give it another couple of months. But boxing in and giving some healthy constraints to the first like set of experiments or number of creative outputs that you're going to have, I think is a really healthy thing. So I have a very old school idea for this that a lot of people resist when I say it for the first time. So if you're hearing me talk about this for the first time, just stick with me for a couple of minutes. I promise it'll make sense. I really advocate for people tracking their time on the projects that they're working on. Now, the reason, obviously, for freelancers, people doing client work, they're pretty used to this if they're billing hours. But what I want you to think about is not just I'm tracking an hour for this client, this project, so I can say I worked on your stuff for this amount of time, but really even thinking about tracking the time that you are spending on different activities or tasks. Because what you want to surface and just bring an awareness of is how much time does it take me to do this certain thing? So each stage of your creative process, how much time are you spending on admin? How much time as a whole are you spending on client work versus your own projects versus like developing education for yourself? The other thing that is an encouragement on this is you don't have to do this all the time until death to us part to like track your time. I've found that if you do it for 2, maybe 3 weeks of working pretty consistently, then you have enough raw data to sift through and understand, okay, this is how much time I'm spending on something. Now that I have an awareness of it, how can I better prioritize and organize? I think of it almost like time budgeting. It's like doing a budget for your time. And so you look at it, you're like, okay, how much time am I literally spending? I thought, because often what will happen is people will then look at their raw data, for lack of a better term. They're like, oh, I thought I was only spending 50% of my time on client work. Like that's what I intend to do, but I'm actually spending 80% of my time on client work. This is where you start to like build in some calendar blocking. Kind of the second phase of this, after you've tracked your time, look at the week ahead and say, okay, I don't know if I'll even be good at it this week because I'm so used to doing it in this other way. But my intention is to say, spend these blocks of time on client projects, protect this amount of time for my personal projects. I'm going to work on admin for this time. And then you just kind of continue to iterate on these intentions that you have because, spoiler alert, the first time you try and do calendar blocking based on your time tracking, you're probably just going to be very okay at it. You'll be like, I missed this calendar block, or this thing still took longer than I thought, or I'm supposed to switch to this other work category right now, but I really need to finish this client project. And you start to feel bad again. So I just say like, it's usually what I've found to be like a 4-ish week detox of time management and transformation to like spend a couple of weeks tracking and then a couple of weeks, blocking and being okay with yourself when you don't hit the goals that you have just because it's a work in progress. You're used to doing something in a particular way, and we're trying to make, at times a pretty significant change. And there, like we've talked about iteration, there are varying levels that you can protect and block time based on what your goals are. Like in terms of being more productive, just think of it as I want to track my time so I can better understand my activities, so that then I can better protect and block for those activities going forward. Like that is the simplest, fastest way, even though I did say it might take a month, to get an idea of how you could better spend your time and like better prioritize tasks and activities going forward. So bullet journaling, there are two ways to think about it, because if you look up bullet journaling on YouTube, hopefully you find some of my videos, but if you look up bullet journaling on YouTube or Instagram or even Pinterest, then what you're going to see most likely are these beautiful, well laid out, artsy planners, notebooks. You're like, oh, that looks really nice, but like, is this what bullet journaling is? I can't do this. I'm not an artsy person. Or maybe I do have some artistic talent, but I just don't have time to do this. And there are a bunch of different ways to unpack that. But if you look back at the origin of the bullet journal, then it is actually a super minimal kind of task planner and day structure system. It's as simple as like, I have a task to do today. I'm going to write down on my notebook. I'm going to draw a little bullet point, and then I'm going to write down what the task is. And when I finish the task, I'm going to X out over that bullet point. And there are a couple of different like keys or legends that you can use. Like if you're taking a note, it's just a dash. If you have an appointment, you can draw a circle around it, so on and so forth. So there are a couple of like little indicators for different things that you might be writing about, but it's essentially just that. It's making a list every day of what you have to do. And there are a couple of other ways to break it down. Like you can have a monthly layout to kind of look at, what do I have coming up this month? A lot of people do habit trackers in them. And again, you can have really beautiful habit trackers. You can, again, just have a list of like, here are the days of the month. Here's the habit that I'm trying to track. Did it this day, didn't do it this other day. What I teach with the bullet journal is more of that minimalist, simple structure of, hey, if you want to add art to it later on, great. I've started doing like some little like icons and doodles in mine. I find it fun, but it's a really simple way to just plan out your day. And what I like about it versus more digital task managers is, I'm a content creator. I spend the majority of my day working in front of a screen. And so I really enjoy that there are things that I get to do each day that are offline, because it helps keep me more focused. Not just even when I'm planning, but when I'm doing these things as well. Normally I have either my bullet journal or just a little field notes pocket notebook of like what my plan is for the day and what are those important tasks. And that helps me stay more focused, because I don't use tasks or things or Todoist. If I have a digital task manager, it's usually in Notion. And a lot of people are like, well, you use Notion a lot anyway. And yes, I do. That's like my main project hub. But unless I'm collaborating with other people on a task, then I won't put it in Notion, because even if I go into Notion, I'm going to be distracted by something else in Notion. Be like, oh, I have this thing I have to write, or I have this project, or like someone pinged me, a contractor or my assistant pinged me for this update that I have. And I know even in a productivity tool, I'm going to be distracted productively, but I'm going to be distracted away from looking at whatever my like daily or weekly plan is. So I tend to do all of my day of or week of planning and to-do items in the bullet journal. I'll do like long, bigger project planning, layouts, research. I do a lot of that digitally because of course that's, easier. But when it comes to like, here's what I have to do today, I pretty much write all of that down.
If you want to hear the full interview that I did with Matt Ragland, you can check it out on episode 89 of the podcast. And if you're interested in how I manage my time, then check out this video.